One important thing that parents should keep in mind is that emotional well-being is not just the absence of a problem or the absence of an illness. It goes far beyond that. Children have a very complex emotional world, just like adults. And a lot of times they learn how to hide their difficult emotions very well, just like we do. Our success would be determined by the fact that no matter where our child is, even after they grow up, they leave home, they start a family of their own even after that, if your child thinks no matter where in the world I am, in case I need help, in case there's a problem, in case I've made a mistake, I can always come back to my parents and there will be love, affection, support and warmth.
Namaste and welcome to Ruburu. As parents, we want our children to be happy, confident and emotionally secure. Yet sometimes we wonder, why has my child gone suddenly so quiet? Or why does my child often get angry over small things? Or why has he suddenly stopped talking to me? The truth is that children often express their emotions not through their words but through their behavior. And learning to understand those emotions can be one of the greatest gifts that you can give your child. And with this thought, today we begin with our very first episode of Ruburu, where we connect with experts who will help us understand our children better and strengthen our relationship with them. And today's topic is understanding our child's emotional world. And to guide us through this important conversation, we have here with us Ms. Anshu Priya, who is a counseling psychologist currently working with Project Children Against Child Abuse, or popularly known as Project Kaka. She has a lot of experience working with students, adolescents, and families. Welcome, Ms. Anshu Priya. We are delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Arunima.
Ms. Anshu, as parents, we often recognize our child's physical health, their daily routine, and their, academic progress as well. Yet, emotional well-being is much harder to recognize.
Definitely.
Can a child be struggling emotionally even though everything seems perfectly normal from outside? And if so, what should every parent know about a child's emotional well-being?
So Arunima, you've started us off with a very great point. Now, as parents and as people in general, we are obsessed with this idea of what is normal. So a lot of parents think that if my child is smiling, going to school, functioning normally in their day-to-day life, everything should be fine. So let us tap into an experience that we commonly have to try to understand this better. How often is it that someone asks you, "How are you, Arunima?" And you just end up responding, "I'm fine," automatically.
Yeah, that's
right.
True.
So children have a very complex emotional world, just like adults. And a lot of times they learn how to hide their difficult emotions very well, just like we do. So a lot of times these emotional changes or emotional upheaval or difficulties may show through their behavior. For example, a child who may be struggling with anxious thoughts, is constantly worried, may start acting unusually clingy or cranky, or maybe become really quiet and withdrawn, right? There can sometimes also be physical changes in the child's body, like for example, they may be experiencing stomach aches, headaches, or maybe unexplained exhaustion, changes in their appetite and their sleep schedule. And as parents, we're very attuned to these changes.
Yes.
So all of these changes are trying to tell us something about what the child is experiencing. One important thing that parents should keep in mind is that emotional well-being is not just the absence of a problem or the absence of an illness. It goes far beyond that. Now, a child who is emotionally well will be feeling safe, happy, confident to express themselves wherever in the world that they are. The child will generally be able to have better relationships, better coping mechanisms, and be able to navigate the world as a more confident individual. So I think that is the aspect of emotional well-being that we should focus on today.
Ms. Anshu, I think you have made a very important distinction here today, that emotional well-being doesn't mean that the child will not face any difficulties.
Definitely.
And what matters the most is that a child should feel safe enough to, share their emotions.
Exactly.
So I think we all can agree that emotional safety is the first step towards building a stronger emotional connection with our child. Which brings me to my next question.
Hmm.
So, if a child is struggling emotionally, why is that a child often does not share their emotion with their parents? Is it because they don't know how to share their emotions, or is it because they feel that they would be judged, or maybe they don't want to bother their parents?
Right. So I feel like that is probably one of the biggest questions on the minds of parents who have tuned in to watch and listen to us today. So a lot of times parents are under the misconception that if something is wrong, my child is going to come and approach me. After all, I'm right in front of them. What's stopping them from coming to me? But what we need to realize about emotional expression is that it's oftentimes like a puzzle that needs to be solved. It isn't right in front of us on display all the time. I'll give you an example. Like children, a lot of times may not have the vocabulary to talk about their emotions. They may be showing you that something is off, or maybe they may be behaving in a way that is off, but the child doesn't know how to label their emotions. So for this, there's a very helpful exercise that I often tell parents about, which is that in normal context, in day-to-day life, try to teach children how to label their emotions. Let's say the child is playing and their toy breaks, right? There's an immediate disappointment on the child's face, and maybe the child starts crying. So in those moments, we can, instead of reacting, just label what is happening. We can say, I can see you're upset, or I can see you're frustrated. So what that does is, it teaches the child progressively over time that when something wrong happens, I can first acknowledge and name it rather than reacting on it. So what can be solved through words does not show through behavior.
Oh, that's a wonderful technique. I think our parents are learning a lot here.
Right. And then something else we need to keep in mind is that children are very attuned with what the parents might be feeling. So a lot of times as adults who have our own problems, parents might be working, they may come home and carry a lot of their workplace stress into the family time as well. So the child can sense that my dad is looking a bit tense today, or that my mama is looking a bit upset today. So because of all of this, the child just withdraws and does not want to bother us any further. So what we are doing is, in a way, I can understand all adults have hard days. Parents also have hard days. But what you're doing is probably sending a message to your child that my emotional instability means that you cannot tick me off. So do not say anything to me right now. Do not upset me further.
Right.
That's the way the child is thinking. While this type of empathy is very impressive, it's also a bit unfortunate because the child ends up isolating themselves.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Another issue is that unfortunately children fear any kind of reprimanding that might come their way. So unfortunately, a lot of us can resort to fear-based parenting sometimes. This happens to all of us where, you're not eating or you're not doing your homework. So you're being told things like, "Khana kha lo, varna police wale aapko lekar chale jayenge," or something like that, So even though it might be a simple parenting tactic, it can sometimes have a deep-seated effect where the child may fear consequences because they've made a mistake or they've done something wrong. Right? So they think that bringing their negative emotions out in the open is a mistake. And now it will be followed by scolding. So this may all happen in an unintentional manner, but still, ends up isolating the child. What can also happen is, especially with older kids, teenagers, a lot of times there's this feeling that my parents won't understand me. Because teenagers, once they've reached that age, they've already developed some sense of the world, They understand the world, they understand things happening around them. And they think their perception of the world is very different from their parents. So that's when the generational gap aspect comes into play, and they think my parents won't understand me, and that also creates a barrier. But what is important to understand is that as long as there is emotional safety in the home, as long as we are creating a safe space where our immediate instinct is not to fix problems but to rather listen, understand without judgment, and then arrive at a solution together in conversation with the child, we would have created a space where our child will feel better about approaching us. Another thing is that communication, children learn it just like they learn language. The more you develop it, the more you practice it in normal scenarios, the better you get at it. So even simple conversations like, how are you feeling right now after school? Or let's say the child is talking about something that happened with a classmate. So you ask questions like, okay, how did that make you feel when they didn't include you in something, or when all of your friends were invited to a party but you were not invited? So how did this make you feel? And once the child is talking about these emotions, we also need to be present. We cannot seem distracted. We cannot divide our attention in that moment. We have to be completely present for the child, because this is a moment of vulnerability.
Yes.
This is a moment of opening up.
True.
And the way you act in that moment is going to set the foundation for how your future conversations are going to look like. So any of the parents who are listening to us who feel disconnected with their teenage children, fear that their kids are hiding something from them, this is not a sign of lack of love. It's just reconnection that needs to happen through simple conversations, and it can be achieved over a period of time, as we've discussed, through emotional safety.
One thing that really stuck with me from what you said is that children often hesitate, sharing their emotions in front of their parents. And as a school counselor, I can agree, because children often come to me and they will say that I cannot share this with my parent because I don't think that they will understand my emotions.
Right.
And if that is how a child is feeling, I think it's very important for parents to understand how a child communicates their emotion. And as you mentioned, children communicate their emotions through behavior. However, children often go through their phases of, mood swings, emotional ups and downs, and tantrums even. So how can a parent differentiate between ordinary childhood behavior and signs that actually indicate that their child is struggling emotionally?
Right. So children, as I said, are also going through this world in their own way. They're learning new things every day. So naturally, there will be mistakes that are made. Children will also try and push boundaries, because that's how they learn what the limits are and how correct behavior or what incorrect behavior might mean. So this is all emotional learning at play. Now, naturally, some days will be difficult. Children will have a lot of tantrums. They may feel emotionally, there will be ups and downs and things like that happen all the time. Now, not every behavior needs examination. Not every behavior needs to be hyper-analyzed by the parents to see whether something's wrong or maybe we need to do something about this. I believe parents need to ask themselves a few important questions to differ between an event or an incident that is isolated, that has only happened one time, or something that is happening repeatedly. Right? When mistakes happen once, children can actually utilize that mistake to understand what consequences are and how we can learn from it and move forward. But questions such as, is this happening again and again? Is this happening every week? Is the intensity of this behavior increasing? Or is this behavior disrupting my child's ability to function on a day-to-day? So all of these questions will help us answer whether a behavior is just wrong or needs examination, or whether a behavior is something that's an isolated one-time incident. I also encourage parents to look at their own behaviors as well, because a lot of times children attune themselves to the way that the home emotional environment is. So as parents, if maybe we're setting an example of emotional instability, let's say we get an upsetting phone call and right after that we're raising our voices, or we're expressing our disapproval in really loud and maybe upsetting ways, or maybe we're getting into arguments. So all of this shows the child that this is what I need to mimic, and this is how I can also act out, right?
Yes.
So that is something that parents need to keep in mind, that their own emotional regulation, their emotional coping is an example for the child to follow. Now, one more thing I would like to caution parents about is that we shouldn't create a binary of good behavior and bad behavior, because every child is inclined to want to be a good child. Right?
Yeah.
But once we show or maybe react in a way that is negative, the child will think that their behavior has been dismissed as something that's wrong or something that is bad.
Right.
So that also creates a cycle of maybe repeating that behavior again and again, right? Or maybe hiding because they are so scared of making that mistake once that they don't want to make it again. So what we need to keep in mind when we look at behaviors that are repetitive, that are persistent, that are creating problems for our children, is to not think, oh, why is my child behaving this way? Or why is my child creating such a nuisance? Instead, we should ask, what is my child trying to show me? What is my child displaying as far as their emotional coping abilities are concerned? So there are some underlying, concerns that will come about. It's never what the child is showing that's the problem in itself. It's always, the underlying concerns. So once you do a deep dive, once you have a conversation with the child, you'll realize that there were actually many concerns that they were hiding, they were burying inside of themselves, and it came out in a way that was not acceptable in that moment. So I think that sort of deep emotional examination is something we will have to do once we flag something as concerning.
So what you mean is that we should focus on behavior patterns rather than the behavior itself.
Exactly.
And also we should really dig in why that behavior occurred. Right. And mostly what happens is that parents focus on the consequence of a behavior.
Exactly.
Rather than the cause, right?
I think curiosity is something that is very crucial. So I understand naturally that there are situations where our child may act in a way which we don't like. And because of that, we may immediately jump into the phase of punishment, that I need to correct this behavior. But before correction, there needs to be curiosity.
Yes.
You need to try and understand, why is my child doing this? Why did they express themselves in this way? Why did they not use their words like I've taught them, but instead used a behavior to show me what they're feeling? So I think these questions as parents can be very insightful. I know it sounds like a very lengthy and tedious exercise, but it naturally becomes a part of our habit.
Right.
And once we start doing it often enough, you'll realize that children are picking up on this. And instead of you doing this curiosity exercise for them, they will themselves come up to you and say that, Mama, I did this probably because I was feeling like this. So, my anger was actually a result of a fight I had with my friend, but I was not able to talk about it before. But now I understand that the reason why I acted angry is because I was upset because of my interaction with my friend. So it's an exercise that children pick up on very fast, but as parents, we need to take an initiative.
All right. So this might make parents naturally wonder, what are the warning signs that you think there are that parents should look out for?
Right. So I think the warning signs come in a lot of different forms. I would still like to, put a caution here that not everything is a waving red flag. We need to differentiate in what is persistent, what is genuinely problematic, and what is just children being children.
Yeah.
We do not want to take away their freedom to express themselves. However, I think every parent is aware of a limit that need not be crossed, right?
True.
One thing we need to keep in mind is that as parents, we know our children best. So there is an instinct that we have, that something isn't right. And we should never ignore that instinct.
Yes.
That is always a entry point for us to examine something further. Now, as far as signs are concerned, there are physical symptoms. So the child may have headaches, may have stomach aches, may want to stay away from school, may not want to attend school because of these physical concerns. But what is underlying is also an emotional concern that we need to look into. Secondly, I think if the child is displaying excessive amounts of worry, is constantly, talking about scenarios and going into the most catastrophic outcome possible. What if I don't get good marks? Then I will not be able to get into a good college. Then I won't be able to get a good job. That sort of thought process that sometimes we instill in children, but they pick up on it.
True.
And they start, going down that spiral.
True.
So that amount of excessive worry is something that we need to be cautioned about. Another thing to keep in mind is changes in personality and disposition. So we all know how our child is. Generally, parents have a very good idea of what the child's personality is like. Let's say a child who's typically very calm, very composed, very patient, is becoming very cranky, is not able to, sit down and take turns in a conversation, is constantly wanting to talk over their parents. Children who are very extroverted are suddenly very quiet and withdrawn. So changes, unusual changes is the keyword here. Anything that's out of the ordinary needs to be flagged if it's happening repetitively. So that's in one, simple way I could explain what behaviors changes or warning signs need to be kept in mind. Another thing that is important is that sometimes children worry or show very excessive negative thinking. Let's say if the child is talking about certain scenarios where they may be thinking of hurting themselves or harming themselves. Children say things like, I'm never good enough, I'm always a failure. And as parents, we wonder, इनको ऐसा किसने सोचने को बोला? Because we never gave them these ideas.
True, yes, correct.
But even if the child doesn't understand the full weight of these sentences or what this might mean, they're still expressing emotional difficulty. So we need to keep these in mind as well.
I think you have shared some very practical signs that will help our parents become more aware and recognize their child's emotional struggles better. But recognizing emotional struggles is only part of the journey.
Right.
I think equally important is how we respond when our child finally comes to us to share their emotions.
Precisely.
So, sometimes unknowingly, parents say things like, stop crying, or be brave, or, it's not a big deal, things like that. And although they say these things with good intentions, but can these responses stop the child from, sharing their emotions? And if so, can you suggest some better ways for them to respond so that a child feels, heard, understood, and feel safe enough to, share their emotions?
Right. So I think it's important to start this by reassuring parents that we've all been in this place where we have said things like, stop crying, itni bhi kya badi baat hai, it's not a big deal. A lot of times, as you said, the intention is good. We come from a protective place. We love the child, which is why we don't want them to face any difficulties. In fact, when the child is expressing, difficult emotions, I've heard parents say this a lot of times that, I can't bear seeing my child cry.
Yes.
When they cry in front of me, I feel like crying.
Yes.
So when our children are expressing difficult emotions, we want to stop it from happening. But sometimes our good protective instinct can come across as dismissal because the child might think that, my emotions are unwelcome here, which is why I need to deal with this alone.
All right.
So I think a better way to respond, I would like to maybe go step by step. So the first step here is to always acknowledge the situation, acknowledge the emotion before addressing the situation. So what this will look like is that, let's say something has happened and the child is now seeming in distress to us, right? So at that point, we need to ask them questions about how they're feeling. How is this making you feel? I can see that you are crying, so you must be very upset. Do you want to talk about this? Now, this shouldn't be confused with agreeing with the child's behavior. It could very well be that the child has made a mistake. So this does not mean there is lack of accountability and they won't face consequences or that there wouldn't be a conversation about repercussions. But it's still important that stays as the second or the third step. The first step should always be acknowledging emotions, because when children acknowledge emotions, we prepare them to deal with challenges by themselves. It builds emotional resilience. Now, the second step here is to talk to the child and try and understand what has happened. Now, an instinct that we also have is to fix our child's problems immediately.
Yes.
When they express an issue, there are a lot of parents who don't develop emotional independence in the child, but rather try and fix. A common example that I have seen is that when there is peer-to-peer, problems, let's say friends are fighting amongst each other, it may often happen that because there's a usual disagreement, the parents might start talking to each other as a way of solving the problem that the kids are facing together. Obviously, if a situation has gotten serious, then the parents need to be involved. But children will have conflict with each other. Children will have problems, Life is full of problems. It's inevitable.
Yes.
So our goal here is to prepare the child to independently handle problems. But while we prepare them, we need to be as present, give them as much attention and as much consistent support as we possibly can. So the point here is to be present. You may not always know the right thing to say or the right thing to do, but as long as you're constantly present, as long as you're telling your child that no matter what, I am here for you, I am here with you, and we're together going to find a solution, it is going to be all right. Now, when we come to solution, it is important to teach children what solution oriented thinking can be like. So I'm not saying our focus should just be on emotions. We should also focus on emotion, but in my perspective, that comes second. So now we're going to sit down with the child, we're going to discuss the situation, we're going to look at what the possible solutions can be together.
Right.
So I feel like a constructive approach would be to be emotion focused and then solution focused, and that would be a good way for a parent to respond. And parents shouldn't feel a lot of pressure that I'm doing something wrong. Children can sense that.
Yes.
Be as confident, as calm, and as present as you possibly can, and most likely you will be able to solve this together with your child.
All right. I think you have summed it up beautifully. And just to clarify, so what were the points? First is that we do not dismiss their emotions.
Precisely.
Second was
to be focused on emotions first rather than the situation or what has gone wrong.
right. And third is that let's not directly solve their problem first, because I think what a child wants is not a parent to solve their problems
Right.
instantly, but they want a parent who listens.
Precisely.
Right.
In a way, we can think of this like a safety net.
Yeah. Yes.
You are out there solving your problems. I am here standing with you. In case something goes wrong, I will always help you. In case you need me to step in, I will. But there needs to be emotional independence that is instilled in the child. So emotional independence and emotional support can definitely go hand in hand.
Another thing that I would like us to discuss is that there is this assumption among parents that if their child is doing well academically, attending school regularly, and behaving normally, everything seems fine. Can this assumption sometimes prevent parents from recognizing emotional struggles of their child? Also, what are some specific signs that may indicate emotional struggles even if a child is doing well academically?
Right. So this is indeed a misconception, Arunima.
Yes.
Because academics is only one part of the child's life,
True.
As a well-rounded human being, there are a lot of different aspects of your life. There's academic, there's your interpersonal relationships with your
Yes.
family and friends, there's your hobby, enjoyment, sports. Everything is as crucial in the child's life as academics is.
Yes.
Now, this becomes even more important to think about when we are looking at children who are high achieving or who are very academically oriented, because these children are even better at hiding their struggles because they're used to meeting expectations, right?
Yes.
They tend to want to please everyone all the time.
Yes.
They are used to working under immense amount of pressure and still performing well. So it's not that the child's academic excellence is a sign of everything being fine. Sometimes that academic excellence can also be a sign that the child is just adapting to more and more and more pressure.
So just being curious, why do you think that students who do well academically, they get so better at hiding their emotions?
Right. I think it's a process that happens over a period of time. So as we know, when we are going about living our lives as adults also, there are lots of things that come our way. Maybe there is a setback at work. Maybe we are facing some other kind of everyday difficulty, like maybe our commute is very irritating. There's a lot of traffic. Now, all of these worries of everyday life and our worries in general need to be often set aside in order to focus on our one singular goal, right?
True.
So these children tend to have a laser sharp focus on their academic goal
True.
and are able to shut down everything else, which is okay in a short duration of time. But as we understand, those very crucial academic years in your life from grade 10th to grade 12th and even after that, when you're prolonged period of time when you're not focusing on your emotions or on the pressure that you're facing and only focusing on academics, that can sometimes create a lot of issues, right? So children can display excessive worry despite being very good academically. So the question that parents need to ask is not, what is my child's report card showing? The question is my child also able to emotionally cope with the struggle of academics, with the pressure of wanting to get into a good college, which, because all of these conversations are very relevant in our country as far as the mental health of students are concerned. At the end of the day, we want to prepare our child to be a good person, a good individual, a good citizen, and all of that goes way beyond academics as well. Now, some of the signs that we need to look out for is that you need to notice how the child is doing outside of studies as well. Is my child able to enjoy with their friends? Is my child still taking interest in hobbies that they used to enjoy? You know, it's a common thing where children who are very fond of playing in the evening or have, you know, playtime in the evening will stop after a certain grade because, you know, academics take precedence. Now, it's no doubt that academics are extremely important, but all parents want to see their kids happy, enjoying, taking joy in other aspects of their life as well. So these are some signs we need to notice. You also need to see if the child is reacting with a lot of emotional difficulty in and around examination. You know, is there a lot of excessive examination worry? Is the child taking a lot of pressure? Because these are points at which we can step in and try and help and support the child. Another thing that is crucial is that you need to make the child feel like you see them as a person and not just a student, you know, not just a report card.
Yes.
So look at how your household conversations are. Is every conversation about what is your syllabus for the next exam? Or, you know, when is your next exam due? Or what career do you want to have? Or what stream are you going to choose? You know, we need to have conversations beyond that. There is an underlying element of emotional well-being that supports academic well-being. When the child is able to handle pressure well, they will have higher concentration, will be able to focus more, will not suffer with brain fog or loss of memory. So these signs, which can sometimes show us that the child is facing emotional difficulty, can also lead to academic difficulty later. So even though the child is right now functioning well, it might at some point go downhill if we do not cater to their emotional well-being as well. So I feel like all parents should keep this in mind, that academic well-being and emotional well-being has to go hand in hand.
I think that was very insightful, and I think it was very helpful as well. And I am sure it has helped a lot of parents understand as well that how common this stigma is actually. And it's not just parents, usually all of us, you know, a lot of people, they believe this thing that, and you'll see them say this thing, अरे ये तो अच्छा बच्चा, ये तो होशियार बच्चा है,
right?
इसको क्या दिक्कत हो सकती है?
Precisely.
And even I have seen students, you know, when a child comes to me for counseling and if they do well academically, you know, people pass comments like, अरे ये तो अच्छा बच्चा है, ये इसको क्यों ज़रूरत है counseling की?
Right.
So things like, I'm completely there with you.
Precisely. So we need to keep in mind that there are many markers of success in life, and our child's happiness, their emotional well-being, their ability to enjoy and live life is as much a marker of success as their academic excellence.
Yes.
Right.
So Miss Anshu, I really want to ask you this from one counselor to another, and
Right.
I might be being a bit selfish here. So a lot of parents hesitate seeking guidance or counseling because they think that counseling is only for a child in crisis.
Right.
Right? So at what point should a parent consider, you know, going for counseling or seeking guidance?
Right. So that is a very important question, Arunima, because a lot of times, and we see this very commonly in our profession, there's a lot of misconception with regards to counseling. Now, there is this assumption that counseling is a last resort. It's something you seek only when nothing else is working. We would sooner go and, practice things like jhad phook than we do, counseling, because we believe in that more than we do in the practice of counseling. Or maybe there is so much negative societal stigma that, this is something that can't be out there, that my child is seeing a counselor. I would like to tell parents that it is extremely common to seek counseling, not just for crisis situations, but for everyday situations as well. Navigating life as we go on also requires help and support. And of course, a lot of us support our kids at home as parents. They seek support in their friends as well. But there's nothing wrong in seeking support from a counselor or through therapy. That's entirely normal. Think of it as going to a doctor or a pediatrician, for regular checkup.
Yes,
We do
of
that
course.
all the time with
Yeah.
our children. We're very proactive when it comes to medical issues, especially when our kids are concerned. A single cough and we rush to the doctor because we're so worried.
True.
However, we do not show the same sort of proactiveness when it comes to seeking help through a counselor.
Yes.
One thing to also be kept in mind is that counseling is nothing more than just support that is provided to a child through a systematic and structural process. There are a lot of coping skills that the child learns. Your child is not going to become dependent on counseling just because they're seeing a counselor once. In fact, the point of counseling is to instill independence. So seeing a counselor is definitely the right thing to do, even if you think there is, a small issue. Like, it might be small in your mind, but it's still something that is worth looking into. Secondly, a lot of times, there is this assumption as parents that if we seek a counselor, we've failed,
As
in doing our
parents,
job.
yes.
Yeah. But in fact, I appreciate parents who take their children to counseling, because that means you are caring for your child. You're looking at what their needs are and providing them what is the best possible solution,
Yes.
which may be counseling for them. So I feel like it's definitely not a failure of parenting. If anything, it's a sign of good parenting if you're proactive in taking your child to a counselor or seeking mental health help. Now, one thing that I would like to highlight here is that some concerns, especially if there are concerns of self-harm, or if the child is expressing sentiments which are alarming to us. Let's say they're saying that I do not want to live, or that I wish that I don't wake up tomorrow, because those are common things that children can say sometimes, which we assume that it's just a cry for help or they're trying to seek attention,
Yes.
right? But we shouldn't dismiss it as just attention seeking. In fact, if the child is saying it purely just to seek your attention, even that is something that we need to look into. Because it may not be that the child may act on those thoughts that they have, but it's also important that you still listen to them. Maybe they want you to sit with them and talk to them at length, and the only way to get your attention is to say something which is extreme. So I think as parents, that would be something that would be a very big red flag that you keep in mind. But otherwise, no problem is small enough to seek a counselor, and as parents, providing counseling is just additional support.
So, Miss Anshu, in your experience, have you ever come across children who were struggling emotionally initially, yet they made remarkable progress once their parent changed how they listened and how they responded?
Yes. So absolutely, I have definitely seen that. What usually happens is, as we grow up and as we go through life, there are lots of different challenges that will keep coming in. So emotional growth is a lifelong journey. I'm sure parents who are listening to this can also relate that they're still growing emotionally. They're still learning new things every day. So it's the same with children. There is no, destination to be reached. There's no pinnacle of emotional growth.
True.
It's something we do every day. So with children also, I have seen in my experience children who were more, guarded, who had a lot of walls, suddenly open up because they have seen their parents consistently be present and give them attention and give them their focus and give them time. Similarly, I have seen parent-child relationships transform because of questions such as, how are you feeling right now? Or focus more on emotions rather than focusing just on results. So I definitely feel that the parent-child relationship is a work in progress and can be improved. And that relationship is the foundation for the child's emotional safety for the rest of their lives. So this is definitely something that we can work on. Parents shouldn't feel pressure to be perfect in this journey, because there is no perfect parenting,
True.
It's just about being a good enough parent.
Yes.
A parent who is present, a parent who listens, a parent who thinks of trying to understand their child before criticizing them is already doing much better than what one is supposed to do. So there's no, benchmark, there's no medal that we need to get.
Yes.
What we need to do is ensure that we're trying our best every day. Not every day will be perfect, because this is a process that takes a lot of patience. And as adults, sometimes we naturally lose patience. But it's okay. The good thing is children are extremely resilient. So despite everything that they go through, they learn remarkable coping skills and they're able to display that throughout life. So we need to also show a lot of trust and confidence in our child, that once we have imparted them this sort of educational, emotional awareness, that the child is going to adopt it and take it everywhere with them. So I think this is definitely something that will evolve and will definitely get better over time as long as we stick with it.
That's wonderful to hear. So I think that's a big cheer for our parents as well. You're doing a great job. You're doing very well. So small steps, they matter a lot. So before concluding this conversation, I would like to ask you something. For every parent watching this conversation, if they could remember just one message from your side, what would that be?
Right. So I have not one, but two messages.
Okay.
So bear with me.
Of course.
The first message that I want each parent to keep in mind is that effort counts more than anything else.
True.
So the very fact that you're sitting here, you're listening to this podcast and you're trying to implement this in everyday life already means that you're showing what your child needs and you're listening to it and you're showing effort, right?
Yes.
So that is something that we need to keep in mind. Secondly, what we need to remember is that our relationship with our child is one of the most powerful factors in their emotional well-being. This relationship, this parent-child relationship is extremely special. It's supposed to protect the child. It's supposed to guide the child. It's supposed to be a place of safety.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, our success would be determined by the fact that no matter where our child is, even after they grow up, they leave home, they start a family of their own even after that, if your child thinks no matter where in the world I am, in case I need help, in case there's a problem, in case I've made a mistake, I can always come back to my parents and there will be love, affection, support and warmth, in that relationship.
Yes.
So I think that's what ultimately all of us want, that we be a home for our child, right? Another thing that parents should keep in mind is that there is no substitute for quality time. So make sure that every single day you spend some uninterrupted minutes with your child. So when kids are younger, one of the ways that we can do it is, even if we're working parents and we don't have a lot of time, you come back home in the evening, spend time with the child during bedtime, read a story to them, share some life experiences, laugh, watch something together. Now, by watching something, I'm not encouraging that you give them unlimited screen time. What I mean is, screen time should also be intentional, in the sense that, let's say there are lots of Disney and Pixar movies or other animated movies that explore emotions really well.
Right.
Frozen, right, is one example.
Yes,
so when we see Elsa and she's singing about letting it go,
Huh.
that's about letting go all of your anxieties, your emotions that are bothering you.
True.
So I think as parents, even while we're watching movies, even while we're watching shows, we can sit with our child, we can see what they're reacting to when they're laughing, or when we can see that our child is upset by something that is happening on the screen, we can explore those emotions as well. So I feel like spending quality time together is the best thing you can do for your child. Do not talk to them about studies. Do not try to teach them anything. Just try to be a person with them, just try to enjoy with them. So I think all of these things will ensure that our relationship with our child is something that stays prosperous, and mainly to remember that mistakes are made all the time as parents. Kids also make mistakes.
Yes.
What matters is, at the end of the day, we come together and we connect on something, So that is the thing that I would like to leave the parents with, that connection is more powerful than any mistake that is made by the child or is made by you. And also to keep in mind that at the end of the day, the emotional safety you provide the child is the best investment you can make in your life.
So connection and emotional safety right there is your key term, right?
Exactly.
Dear parents, every child's emotional world is unique. A child might ask for help through their words or through their behavior, through their silence, or even changing habits. The more we listen without judging, the more secure a child feels. And before we say goodbye, here is a small Rubaru family challenge. Today, spend 10 uninterrupted minutes with your child, and there are some rules involved. Do not ask about their homework. Do not ask about their marks. And don't give any advices. Instead, ask them this: What was the best part of your day today? Or did you feel upset today about something that happened? Listen patiently. Stop the urge to solve their every problem. You know what a child wants the most is not perfect answers. It is a person who listens to them without judgment or without any interruption. Thank you so much, Miss Anshupriya, for being with us today. I think we all have learned so much today, and I'm really grateful for having you today. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Arunima. This was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today for the very first episode of Rubaru. We look forward to meet you again for yet another meaningful conversation. Till then, stay connected, stay compassionate, and keep the conversation going.